Welcome back. Yes. Hey, look at it. It's video number 3. A topic came up that was so important that I needed to share it to as many people as I possibly could. Now, obviously, this channel has been kind of abandoned. I'm not running anymore. I'm not posting any videos. But I just happened to see and pick up a video from Uncle Tony's Garage talking about the transmission kickdown cable kits. And he showed the prices ranging from $16 to $170. Okay. If you have been a member of this channel approximately a year and a half ago and multiple times before that over the last 4 years, I cover topics of what constitute a product to actually be able to carry the label made in the USA or made in America, so on and so forth. I gave you the legislative direction for law. If there's lawsuits, challenging where the product is being made, how much of the product actually has to be made of materials from the United States here, so on and so forth. And within the wording, whenever you see a label, it has to have 4 words. Made in the USA. It can't just be made in the USA or a product of USA. All of those things allow them to get out of any kind of legal obligations as far as where it's made. Okay, so even if the entire product is sold and assembled here in the United States, but everything in the product comes from overseas, they can put on the label that it is, a product of the USA. If the headquarters of the company that is selling it, okay, so if they order it from overseas, it comes to a storage area here, it's assembled and packaged and then sold as a product here, they can put the label on there as being made in or made a product of the USA. Uncle Tony asked if we had any examples. Now, going back to the videos, I'm an avid fisherman, and multiple of you across the United States have probably heard of the name of St. Croix fishing rods. Okay, they're made in Park Falls, Wisconsin. Okay, that's where the manufacturing facility is. Okay, so they do roll out the actual blanks to create fishing poles. But all of the products that they put onto it, including the carbon fiber or graphite wrap that they spool, all come from overseas. So while the product is collecting the components to create the device, all of that components from overseas, but as long as it's assembled here in the United States, they can actually put the label on it saying a product of the USA. Because the profits, now again going back to not only the components, but where the money, once you buy those products, where it stays. So if they're headquarters, another product that you might be familiar with within the automotive industry was, can't think of it here now. Approximately 6-7 years ago, there was a company where you could order parts dirt cheap, especially suspension and brake components. When you got them, they came from Canada. So the warehouse where all these products were, they were shipped there from China into Canada. They weren't exposed to the exact same tariffs or the taxes that they would be in the United States. But the headquarters was actually based out of New York. So when you receive the products at your house, they put a label over the original Canadian label for, obviously language changes and stuff like that. It would say a product of the USA. When nothing of the components was actually manufactured here. But the profit margins of that product being sold stays here. Okay, a very small percentage actually goes to China. Okay, so in previous videos, I had mentioned that you need to research all the different companies. And at the time, this was before all of the dyno mule tests and stuff that people were doing, the discussion before flat tappets. One of the very first videos I created was to draw attention to the flat tappets, meaning that back through 2002, I had avidly rebuilt engines. And in 2002, when I first started noticing engine failure, the packages that I was purchasing were actually from Summit Racing catalog. In Uncle Tony's Garage, he was comparing it to Jegs. And the box had, competition cams made in I believe it was Columbus, Ohio, or something like that, a product of the USA. Okay, then I started having failures, and then that was approximately about the same time that I started actually getting into professional engine building, and I would order thousands and thousands of sets of different components. Now, the camshafts can come from all over the different places, and some manufacturers will be like, oh yeah, they're made here, but the blanks aren't. Okay, they'll order the blanks and they'll put it in their grinders based off of a mold that they've been received or whatever. Another cylinder head manufacturer here in the United States for automobile stuff, Airflow Research. For many years, catalogs like Summit and JEGS advertise them as being proudly made here in the United States. They order the mass castings from China, get here, they do the machine work, and then they actually sell it as an American product. Depending on how much work they put into the cylinder heads, whether they're doing CNC process or installing the valve guides, the valve seats, they might order just the bare castings from China and they're putting in the valves. If the end product includes a certain amount of time of manufacturing put into it, and they have components that are made here in the United States connected to it, they can sell it under the banner of American made. Okay? Doesn't happen. Now, when I was about 10 years ago, when I was first getting into manufacturing, I also get into other type things. So St. Croix is actually a competitor. I don't advertise my own products, but I partnered with a individual out of Washington State. So I knew where all the components that it needs to make anything out of carbon fiber. Whether that's body armor, to fishing rods, to our military jets. I know where that stuff comes from. Now, I approached a salesman for St. Croix from the actual Park Falls facility. And they had two different lines of fishing poles. One was called the Legend Series and another one was the Superior Series. The Legend Series had a rubber handle, or rubber grip to the handle. It was identical to their top of the line fishing rods. Now, at that time, the Legend Series had the little USA flag on the, I guess you want to call it the buttstock of the fishing rod. But if you bought their top series or Pro Series one, it actually had the words of made of or made in USA. It didn't include the word the. So knowing the laws of how manufacturers can label their products, I immediately started asking a lot of questions. And I could tell I made the guy really uncomfortable. I asked for a tour of the facility. I got to know an employee that worked there. And I asked them exactly how much of their manufacturing was using American-made products. Nothing. Nothing was. Now, the only thing that is assembled at the Park Falls location is their highest end, the one that they have the actual words and the American flag. Their Legend Series, they were putting the American flag on the product. I actually got into a lawsuit with one of the largest manufacturers of fishing poles in the United States, in the world, for that fact. The partner that I'm with, the product that I do make, we sued St. Croix. Okay, and through that process, we had to learn exactly what they can and can't do, what has to be included, how much of the product, how much of the sales, how much of the profits have to remain here in the United States. We came to find out their lower level fishing rod were spooled rods that were actually assembled or wrapped in Park Falls. Those blanks used to be able to be purchased by any custom fishing rod builder. Okay, you could actually order them directly from them, send them to you, and you add all the components, handles, line guides, the whole 9 yards you could add later on. They took millions of rods and sent them down to Mexico, where the Mexicans received the same products from China, the line guides, the cork of the handles, the spool seats, all of that was assembled in Mexico. Then from Mexico, they would distribute it to the thousands of different fishing, stores, whether it be Shields, Gander Mountain, Cabela's, you name it. So it wasn't even shipped directly from the main manufacturing or the home office of St. Croix. We won that lawsuit. Now, any of the products that were assembled in Mexico, they can no longer carry the American flag symbol. But they can put in words a product of the USA, with including the word "the," a product of the USA, not made in the USA. They had to drop the words. So it's legal jargon to allow them to get around things. Now, if you're purchasing products, going back to the Uncle Tony's garage thing, realize those cables were probably manufactured 20 years ago. Okay, it's not like a company like Locar or Jigs places an order to a manufacturing facility for, say, 1,000 units. It doesn't happen. When products like that, the tooling set up to make those different brackets and assemble the different threaded components, they're made in large quantities of over 1 million. So another local company here, about 12 miles down the road from me, they actually make the threaded chrome components for multiple manufacturers, whether that be Earl's hoses and fittings, aluminum fittings, to supercharger components. All of them that have that chrome threaded piece, they're manufactured down the road. And the smallest order of components they will have is 10,000 pieces. Okay, they'll stamp them out, go through the chroming process, distribute out to whatever company that wants that component of that size, and then they can add on the little details or change the color of the hoses, so on and so forth. The metal at that manufacturing facility all comes from China. The only thing that's American manufacturing about it is the actual stamping guides and the cutting tools to cut out each one of those different shapes. And each one of those dies is an American patent. And in order to get that product, they have to order at least 10,000, or excuse me, at least 1 million pieces before they'll even set up the tooling to do it. So any of these products, whether it be the cable kick down lever to alternator brackets, air cleaner, valve covers, they are all manufactured in very large numbers. They fill warehouses full of them. Now, going back to the specific Locar or Jegs cable that Uncle Tony's using, or purchased 2 of them, those could have been sitting in a warehouse for 20 years. Whenever the mass manufacturing occurred, they stacked it in the warehouse. And as that product sits on the shelves of the warehouse, they continue to increase in value no matter how long they've been sitting there. Now, because of inflation, so today somebody's willing to pay that amount, they're literally selling a $5 product that they purchased 20 years ago, has sat on the shelf for the last 15 years, and they're selling it for $167. Okay. Here's an example, a perfect example right here. This happens to be a factory magazine for Remington 700. Okay, it will fit. It's stamped on the side. It'll fit so many different platforms that use the Remington bolt action. The stocks, basically in that portion, they only have to have basically the magazine latch and dimensions to be able to fit into multiple different stocks. So it can be used in Winchester, Ruger, you name it. It's an industry practice to make things comparable within mechanisms, so they're interchangeable. Real quick example, fire trucks. The fittings on our fire trucks, the machining, the threading, it's all machine grade measurements. So if a machinist gets it, they basically only have to look at 4 things, whether it's fine course, wide course, the pitch, and the twist rate. 4 things, and they can program the machine and so on and so forth. If you go to the hardware store and you purchase any cast iron piping, it's all going to be threaded to the exact same dimensions. These tin magazines were produced back in the 1970s in the multi-millions. Since that point, they have not made these brand new. They're working off of stock that they've had. So it is the greed, it is the amount of middlemen that hold that product and add value to it, even though nothing's changed other than it's sitting on a shelf. So again, I've done these videos before. It's a crock. The United States needs to dig into price gouging. That's the only way this gets fixed. Have a good one.